That would be fantastic.
Yeah, hello Earth. Yeah, okay.
So, this is not the most awkward thing I've ever done.
You can hold it wherever you want. Sometimes I met someone who like a little witch, right? Yeah.
I'm a little bunny.
Or like this, no? You know?
He's a red-tailed fox.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for taking time. And I mean, you're like the Beatles in Germany in my eyes. Here's such a huge hype every year, or every 2 years you come over with a new album, especially in my peer group. I mean, they grew up with your music now. How is it to be back in Berlin? And first of all, welcome back to Berlin.
Thank you. It's always great to be in Berlin. Like I absolutely love the city. I love Germany as a whole. I haven't found a piece of Germany that I don't like. I've said this a million times, but the first time I came to Germany, I was like, I got off the plane. I was like, I don't know why, but I kind of get it. I get it. I get like, I can't understand what that guy's saying, but I do. I don't know what that thing I'm reading means, but I kind of do. I felt like on like a cellular level, I was like, oh, I feel like this feels really familiar to me. And yeah, so.
But wait, didn't you do a the ancestry.com and he checked his like heritage? And you've got
I'm a Viking and a German. I'm a German Viking.
You didn't even know.
I thought I was like English because it's like Chester Charles Bennington sounds pretty freaking English to me. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, I'm English and something else. I'm like mostly Norwegian and then like almost just as much German. So I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Makes sense, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
So did you try to find your ancestors, or is there anyone alive maybe?
You know, I don't really care, honestly. Like, you know. I'm not the kind of person who's like, oh, I have all these relatives or all these, you know.
It's you've got like a some duke or some, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's a Norwegian.
Barbara Bush. I am related to Barbara Bush. I don't know if that's cool or not, but it's a fact. Yeah.
Okay. In which? What is your connection?
She's a cousin of my grandmother.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the reaction, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But I'm sure that I'm also like a relative to like, you know, some dude who is like a maniac, like murdering, pillaging Viking somewhere. That's way cooler to me. You know what I mean? Like some dude that like conquered, you know, a little strip of land in Africa is cooler than Barbara Bush.
But how came this idea, just to check your heritage, or is it just only?
Actually, it's something that like that yeah, like doing the ancestry.com or whatever. There's so many of those. Like it's just I feel like a lot of people that I know, and maybe I don't know if it's an American thing or what, because everybody's just like everybody there is an immigrant. So like we all like my brother did it. So by default I did it, you know what I mean? And it's like we found out stuff about our Japanese side and about our like my dad's side and my mom's side. You know, cool stuff like army generals and, you know, cowboys and stuff. I actually, do you know who Jesse James is? I found out I'm related to Jesse James.
See, that's dope.
That's cool, right? Yeah,
like,
that was
cool.
But we were talking about that. That's the kind of thing he wants. He wants like some outlaw or some like
I got like
interesting like
some like conservative lady.
Yeah, it's not like you don't want to be related to like, oh, he was the governor of Connecticut, of like, yeah, I don't know what, whatever.
Delaware.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. Not that exciting.
Have you ever met Barbara Bush and told her like, hey, we're
No.
family?
No, and I bet if I was like, hey, you know what, I'm related to you, she'd be like, arrest him.
Yeah.
Look at his face.
Security.
Oh no. Okay, that's okay. Wow, that's really interesting. Maybe I should check too. Maybe I have some Chinese background, or who knows? Like
You might be Mexican.
Who knows?
You never know.
My
wife found out she was like part German too, because she's half Mexican, and she has like a white sister she never met. Like when I say like white, I mean like as white as I am, this chick is whiter. Like, and has like a southern accent, and she's so cute. She talks like this. And my wife looks like a Mexican girl, and it's like, I don't get it, but you know, it happens. It's cool.
Wow. Okay, good to know. So we have more background than ever about you guys. But first of all, you both had birthday. Chester last week. Happy birthday.
Yep,
Happy birthday.
I can't stop the aging from happening. I keep trying to figure out a way to do it, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, but I mean, you became 41. You also had birthday one day before me. I had
Nice.
February 12th. You have February
Nice.
11th.
Happy birthday.
So, thank you. So we are all blessed, like having our birthday.
Yep.
I'm 36. You're 40. You're 41. So
Thanks for reminding me. I'm just teasing. That's it.
Out of here.
But Chester, what did you present yourself for birthday?
Do you really want to know what I did on my birthday?
Like, did you do any?
Okay, so this is what I did. I laid in bed and I watched Iron Fist, the new Marvel TV show on Netflix.
Yesterday.
And so I watched like 4 hours of Iron Fist.
That's a big start.
And then my wife made me like a steak dinner. And
Wait, you watch TV until dinner?
yeah.
Wow. That's holy
Dude, I was just like, this is what I'm doing.
Oh my god. That's
And she's like, do you need anything? I'm like, nope, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm going to sit here all day. And so then I ate dinner, and then they made me a really nice Darth Vader head cake.
amazing.
It was fantastic. It was like one of the best cakes I've ever had. And then I ate some ice cream, like a bunch of ice cream, Chubby Hubby by Ben and Jerry's, as a matter of fact. And then I went back to my room and I watched another 2 hours of Kung Fu movies.
You know what's funny about that? You know why that's such a good birthday for Chester is because this dude like gets up at like 4 in the fucking morning and like works out and comes to work. I mean, it's like here and then you're doing stuff with the kids and picking people up and making dinner for like 20 people. It's like you do so many things in a day. He doesn't sleep as much as I do. So I mean, you sleep like 6 hours or 5 hours.
Oh, if I sleep for 6 hours, I wake up like, I slept too long.
So like that's part of it. But to like sit in bed and not do anything in a day is like really, that's kind of crazy that you did that.
It was rad.
Yeah.
Because I thought like maybe you did it like it's starting into a new chapter or a new era, like with the 4. Maybe you did a tattoo or something for remembrance.
Nah, see,
Not
here's
for
the thing.
41.
Here's the thing. I've been in the tattoo business for 20 years. 22 years now. I can get a tattoo like anytime I want. I don't need it. I don't need a reason to like be like, oh, I'm 41. You know, like I'm 14 in my mind. So like, no, I don't. It's funny, but like, I kind of. Birthdays aren't really that big of a deal to me personally. I know they're important to my wife. They're important. Like I want my kids to have fun on their birthdays. But I feel like after like, I don't know, like once you move out of your mom and dad's house, like, you know what I mean? Like I haven't really been interested in my own birthday for probably 15 years.
Oh, okay.
And every time, and like when a big deal is made out of it, I kind of get annoyed. I'm just like, dude, seriously, like, why are you putting all this extra stuff? Why is anyone putting all this extra stuff for me to do just because it's my birthday? Like, I kind of don't want to do any of it. That's why this birthday in particular, I didn't actually do anything. My wife was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, you're seeing it. And she's like, cool, I'm going to go do something else. I'm like, fantastic. This is great. It was awesome.
So, Mike, you became 40. Did you ask Chester which things you should do in the 40s?
Oh, maybe I
Since I
should.
have so much experience.
I mean, you've completed that. You've completed that test. So
Yeah. Here's one of the best comments I've ever heard. Joe Hahn, who like just turned 40, right? Before, like 2 weeks before his birthday, he was talking about somebody, like referencing someone that he knew. He's like, or somebody that he'd met. He's like, I don't know, like I can't remember his name, but he's like this old guy, like he's like 40 something. And I was like, dude, fuck you, man.
this old guy.
You're gonna be 42 weeks.
Yeah, but it's all in your mind, right? Like that was one thing that I told people when I came home from we had a festival show here. We played with some other artists who are older than we are, and very like, there's something about the show where I went like, I don't know if this artist would be as successful in the US. And I came home and I was telling people about it, and they're like, well, why wouldn't they be? I said, because the US has like this obsession with like all their musicians being young. And we were, it's not just musicians too. It's like, you age out of things in the US. And what I like about Germany, and this is true for other places, especially in Europe, that, in fact, I asked the promoter, going back to the show thing, I asked the promoter, so what's the story with this group? Why? Tell me about the connection with the crowd and the group. And one of the things he said was like the crowd likes them because they are youthful. Like they're older guys, but they like run around and jump around and they act young and they're having fun. It's like, you want to grow up to be youthful, right? And I went, that is so cool. That's something that in the US they don't do. They don't. And I feel like maybe that influenced us or influenced me a little bit. Like I don't, I'm not dressing like a 15-year-old, but I don't want to act like I'm like, 70 either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever that means. I don't know. That's a unformed
You're as old
thought.
As you think you are.
Yeah. I mean,
and as young as you think you might be. I don't know what that means.
We're following the first half though.
Yeah, it kind of fell apart there, but that's what happens with age.
Okay, but you didn't give him any special gift for the 40, like.
He did. Wait, what did you give me?
I got you a Burberry scarf.
Oh yeah, that's with initials on it. No, the scarf is dope.
I was like, I'm gonna keep this. Oh wait, it has his initials on it. I can't.
That's right. Oh, that's so nice.
Man, his birthday presents. Cool.
I'm talking about age because I mean, like after more than 70 years, you're still in the game. Come up with your new album. As I just discussed with some friends about Linkin Park, they were like, "Yeah, you meet Linkin Park. Well, this was my sound in the 7th class, but now I'm in a job."
Yeah.
And someone said like, "Yeah, they're like the grandfathers of the rock, no?" And then I said, like, "No, I know because they are still fresh into the game and do fresh music." So, would you consider yourself like? How do you feel about if someone says like, do you feel like the grandfathers of rock or?
So I prefer veteran. I'm a veteran. I'm a veterinarian. No, honestly, it was really interesting. Like we did a show for a tour called the Warped Tour in the U.S. We played one day in Los Angeles because it was like celebrating 15 years of Hybrid Theory being out, and there were all these acts on the bill that basically like grew up listening to our music and like loved the band. And so
we had never played Warped Tour before.
We've never done Warped Tour. And I don't know if we could survive Warped Tour because it's like 40 dates in a row and you're like just constantly going and you never know like what day, like what time you're going to play. Like we could be playing at noon one day and then like closing the next day. So, yeah. So anyways, we ended up doing a set and during each song, there was a member of a band currently on Warped Tour or that had played Warped Tour before that, loved Linkin Park. And it wasn't until like that day that I always kind of felt like we were like the new guys, even like after 5 records or, you know what I mean? It's just like, cause it doesn't really seem like it's been that long. Everything's like, we've just been working. And so, it's gone by really quickly. And it wasn't until that day where like literally like every kid, every adult, every parent, every grandparent that I met that day was like, I grew up listening to your music and like I wouldn't be here in this band if it wasn't for you guys. And I heard that over and over and over from everybody. And I was like, wow, like we kind of like we're the guys that have been around that bands like kind of look up to and go like, okay, like maybe how would Linkin Park do this, or what do you think how they would approach it, because we respect what they do creatively, business wise, whatever, on live shows, whatever. And it's like that's an honor, because that's not something that you strive for technically, or that we strive for. We just always want to consistently make music that we're into, and like we've always got our ear, you know, to the ground in discovering new stuff. Like we don't get stuck in a certain period of time, or you know, and
I mean,
for bands to kind of come up and acknowledge that they really grew up listening to us, and that we've had a positive influence on them professionally or creatively, is really like, that's dope. Like that's like one of the coolest, nicest things somebody could say to you.
Yeah, I mean, and you're so ambitious over the years and years. Just like you said, like this time we want to do. I read in interviews like pop music. Like last time you want to be more harder. Like you try to get individual concepts, and I mean, this needs so much power and so much work over the years. Where do you take this energy? I mean, I would feel like after, I don't know, have you ever had a moment where you felt like burned out, like because you're so ambitious?
It's actually it's actually the opposite feeling for us, in that it's, in order for each album to feel really interesting and fun to make for me, I want to go in learning something. So, and this has been true, like this is our 7th studio record. Our first 2, Hybrid Theory and Meteora, were kind of, they were more similar in style. And then starting with the next one and everything after it, with each one, we are almost like reinventing the band to some degree, sometimes more, sometimes maybe less. But we're trying to figure out, you know, what do we not know? What can we try that we haven't tried before? So on One More Light, we went into it in the very beginning. We had just been coming off of The Hunting Party, which is a very heavy record, and had an awesome, I mean, making the album was super fun. Touring it was super fun, minus a stint where Chester broke his leg, which was not fun.
It was not fun.
But the end of it, once we got back on the road, did some shows like that. It ended, you know, and we did some great shows with the record. And I mean, the only thing I felt like was missing from that was that we didn't get to play all the songs. You know, we had some other songs on the record that we didn't actually get to play at a certain point because we just had to stop and come back home and start recording. We finished the tour. I stopped in London because I had this idea, like, I know there are people out there who write songs but don't perform them. They write them for other people, or they write with other people, and I have no idea what that is. Like I've never experienced that myself. So, because we've always written all our own stuff, just us. And I stopped in London and I met with a couple people who do that, and I picked their brain. I actually, at the first meeting I had was with a guy named Justin Parker, who's written for Lana Del Rey and a bunch of other people. And I said, you know, explain to me, like, what do you do? I don't know. I don't understand that whole thing. And he did. And then the next day I met with a guy named Egg White, who's written for Adele and Florence and the Machine. And I asked him, what do you do? And their answers were actually different. Like really, you know, what they liked about what they did and how they do it. And the more we got into that world, the more I had this fear in the back of my head that if you work with somebody like that they would come in and like pitch you a song and be like, I want to do this. Or they would come in and what we would make wouldn't sound like us. And the more we did it, the more I met with people, and the more we did it as a group. It was usually me and Brad, and then like most of the time, or some of the time, Chester. The more we did it, I realized, like, no, we actually have such a strong point of view that it still sounds like us, and we're driving the song still. And these people are coming in and they're helping out, you know, to some degree, sometimes less, sometimes more, but it still sounds like Linkin Park. And I was like, oh, this is going to be really fun, because it's just like having more ideas in the room, you know. It gets there faster, and the quality I felt like was really good. I was going to say better, but I don't think I think we've always got this certain threshold of quality. It always has to hit a mark, and so it was just hitting that mark faster for me.
Yeah, I had the same impression. Like after listening to all the songs, to the 10 songs, I felt like a really individual new mood, because like you mentioned that you work with different songwriters, and also there's the piano in most of the songs in the spotlight, and it was really, like I said, like really soft, but the lyrics are really intense. And just to talk about Heavy, about the first single, I mean, I just wrote down, like, I don't like my mind right now, staking up problems that are so unnecessary. Like, this is like one example. It's really personal. So I was just wondering, like, it seems like that you've been through a number of issues over the last couple of years and just working on that album. Can you just give us a clue what actually was inside you as you
Excuse
wrote
me.
it down? Are there any special?
Well, you know, I mean, being in Linkin Park, it has a lot of perks, and it's really a fun life, and it's a blessed life. You know, I get to do what I love to do with really talented and exceptionally decent people. You know what I mean? Like, everyone in the band they're all really good guys, but at the same time, like, none of us are immune from, you know, just shit happening to you, you know, and or not to you, but just kind of making poor choices, or, you know, being human. Like, there's always that element. And for me, like, I think I kind of reached a place in 2015 when I broke my leg. I was in Linkin Park. I was in Stone Temple Pilots. I was a dad. I was like trying to manage all this stuff. I had just gotten done. Like, I feel like I've literally been in like rehabbing injuries since I was 30. Ever since I tore my disc in my back, like, I've just been like constantly rehabbing a surgery, an injury, a surgery, you know, like, it just kind of, I got to a point where I was like, you know, medicating, kind of having issues with that, kind of like, you know, falling back into old habits, into old, you know, behaviors. And I really got to a point, and I got, you know, lost some really close people to me quickly, and was having trouble with all of my relationships, not just like at home, but like with my friends, with just myself, everything. And life got really weird and really hard all at one time. And, you know, I'm like this person who, like, you know, thinks I can do like, I just want to do anything I want to do, like, when I want to do it, and I feel like I can figure it out. And that works sometimes, but I found, like, when I broke my leg, and it was so bad, like, it wasn't just like, oh, I broke my leg, like, I can kind of heal in 8 weeks, I'll be back on, like, it was like, I broke the crap out of it, and I needed, like, reconstructive surgery, and, like, plates and screws and more surgery, and like, it was like, whoa, you know, it was nasty. And that kind of took me into like a depression that really was hard to get out of. And then you know, I realized at that point, like, I can't do all this stuff if everything isn't perfect and running exactly the way it's supposed to. One thing falls off the cart and, like, the whole thing gets ruined. It's like pulling an apple, like, you see a nice stack of apples at the grocery store, and it's beautiful and, like, it's really nice, and then you grab the bottom one and the whole thing goes down, and next thing you know, it takes like all these people to clean up the mess. Right? Everything's ruined, right?
I feel like that's my life.
We were talking about it in the studio, and Mike had made a list of all the things that, not only, like, some of the stuff that he knew I was going through, and then some of the stuff he was going through, and some of the stuff he knew, like, our friends and, like, other guys in the band were going through. It was like a list of like 50 things, and it was like each one of them was on its own really, really hard to go through.
It was like each one was a Netflix. Each one
It was
its
like-
own Netflix
What was
series.
it?
It was like one of our friends died of cancer. My stepdad died of cancer. I broke my leg, and I had to rehab that for a year. I quit Stone Temple Pilots because it was just too much. It was too much. I felt bad about that.
And then that times like
and then
10 times.
And then I was like, depressed, and I was like, you know, drinking again, and then I was like doing all this stuff, and I was just like, dude, like, this is crazy. And you know, all my relationships were struggling, like, everything was struggling, and it was just really tough. And so there was like just enough things to kind of keep me wanting to go. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying earlier, I don't think it was burnt out from just like, man, like, I just need a break. I was burnt out because I was just like, fuck the world. Like, not like I need a break. Like, honestly, like, fuck all of you. Like, everybody and everything. And I don't like doing anything anymore. Like, nothing makes me happy. I don't like anyone. I even told one of my therapists at one point, I said, I just don't want to feel anything. I kind of envy sociopaths because they don't have to worry about ever feeling shit. I kind of want that. And she's like, you mean you don't want to be a human being? I was like, yep, that's what I want.
There's one funny thing that he touched on that like people don't know about. I mean, you can kind of guess about Chester. Like when he's broken his arm on stage years ago, and he broke it, and we were like, okay, do we need to? It was like the beginning of the show. Like, do we need to stop the show? And he's like, well, it's gonna be as broken in an hour as it is right now. And we were like, what? And he's like, yeah, let's just play. It's like, it fucking hurts, but let's just play. Like, he's the kind of guy that's gonna just like power through anything, right? And it's like something's going on, like, oh, it's gonna take you, 8 months to rehab your injury. Chester's gonna be like, I'm gonna get it done in 6. I'm gonna be running a marathon in 6.
Yeah, I ran a marathon in 8 months, and I was back on doing shows with STP. I broke it in January, and I was on the road in April. I should not have been doing that,
But he's gonna try. He's gonna put in the work too. He's not necessarily like you'd think. Oh, he's like doing it and he shouldn't be doing it. Like I watch him like put in the work. Like he really works hard to do all the things he wants to do, right? And those are things you can control. Like you can control. Like, oh, I need to go to the gym every day. I need to do my stretches every day. I need to take my medicine every day. I need to do whatever. And he'll do all those things. And then for anybody especially a person who's like that, like if things happen to you where it's like, no, you literally can't control this. You literally can do zero about this. And you're like, no, but I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And then it's like, no, I don't care that's,
stuff, no? Sounds like...
No, it's control. Like we all have this feeling that like, you want to have certain amount of control over your life, right? Like, oh, like today I was going to go for a run in the park. Oh, it's raining. I can't go for a run in the park. It's like, well, actually you do have control over that. You could put on, rain clothes and go out in the rain and do your run. Oh, we're going to have a birthday party and then now it's raining. Like, no, you do not have control over that. You now cannot do that. No, you're not going to put everybody out there in the rain. It's not going to happen. So then you're upset and you feel more because you've now lost control. You feel so terrible, right? I think there's an element that specific thing, like all those things that Chester was saying and that specific idea of like, there's things we can control. We can control our reactions to things. We control how we handle things, but there's also things you can't. And this record, like that is at the core of a lot of the record.
And that's kind of like, touching on Heavy in the lyrics, that's kind of like what Heavy is about ultimately. It's like that idea that, I find myself personally, like when I'm stuck, it's because I haven't just surrendered to the process of life. I'm trying to like be in there and do things my way. I'm trying to steer the ship or whatever. And, there was a few times over the last couple of years where I was just like kind of like ready to throw in the towel and just kind of give up on everything. But the competitive side of me is like, no, fuck that. Like I'm going to punch this thing out and I'm not going to take back control of my life. I'm actually going to let go of everything. And it's kind of like, that's really the punchline of Heavy is if I could just let go, I'd be set free. Like I found that for me, most of my suffering is self-inflicted. It's not like it's coming from some external source that's making me feel that way. I can easily find myself tricking myself into thinking that like, okay, you said I was 40 something and that made me mad. No, honestly, like, no, it's like that's not anything. It's it's not, no one can make you feel anything. It's what you think about internally that makes you feel things. Like you are the only person that makes you feel anything. And so, I learned through this whole journey, and it resonated with me. It was like, you can elevate your consciousness, you can elevate your spirituality by just acknowledging that there's a problem and then once you do that, you've created space between you and that problem, and now you've actually got a little, even if it's just for a moment, like you have a second to kind of reflect and breathe on it. And that's kind of what I've just been doing. Like, like, okay, like I know that I have this pattern of getting into these kinds of thoughts and these kinds of, actions and choices. And I'm going to do what I need to do so that I can, just live in the moment and not get stuck in these ruts where I'm kind of in this circular way of thinking, these patterns. And that's kind of what Heavy is about, it's like just figuring that out, recognizing it, and then realizing like I actually can do something about it and like let go of this and move forward,
I have two questions on that. Like, you talked about depressed. This is like a huge topic coming. Is it like after you had your injuries, and you said like you talked to a therapist, did you go there and she diagnosed like you have a depression, or what did she say? Like, like an official depression, or is it in your out of your view?
Well, there's different levels of depression. I mean, for people, if we want to get like technical and clinical about it, there's different levels. Like you can feel depressing feelings, and it's like a moment. It's like you can be in a moment. But like clinical depression is something that you actually can't get out of, and you need to be you need to see a doctor, you have to get medicated for it, you need to go to therapy. There's like things that you need to do in order to get out of it, or else you won't, and you're just in it. And it's like it literally, it's not like, oh man, like I kind of like that, I'm just bummed. It's like I don't want to do anything, and I don't feel like doing anything, and I don't like anything. Like there's no sunshine.
So
and so
something like
it's not like a burned out. It's like walking over into the corner and going, I'm just gonna lay down here and just die. Okay. It's not like, it's not even like I'm gonna kill myself. It's just like I'm just gonna go over here and I'm not gonna eat anything, I'm not gonna drink anything, I'm just gonna lay here, I'm not gonna talk to anybody, I'm just gonna do that until I die. That's what depression's like. And for me, I've always kind of dealt with that my whole life. I've always had these kind of depressive side, and I think that's something I've never liked. But I've also never liked being anything. I don't like being I want to be happy, but when I'm in it, I try to get out of it. I don't like being sad. When I'm in it, I want to get out of it. I've never been comfortable just being like. And once I realized that, like, I just want to be able to feel the full spectrum of life, all the good stuff and the bad stuff, and be okay with it. So that's what I've been working on for myself. And it's great because, things don't always have to go the way I want them to go. And I can still enjoy the process of it. I can still appreciate what's happening, but it's taken a lot of work. And one of the things that actually really was very helpful was making this record. It was like being able to get in a room with my friends, talk about what's going on with me, like not being afraid about talking about it like I'm not, like I am right now. And then going into rooms with people that I have no idea and talking about it and listening to them talk about it. And it's like, oh, like, this is kind of cool. Like I didn't, I don't think most people realize, like, you don't have to know somebody to have an intimate experience with them. And you don't have to like know someone to feel safe enough to talk to them. Any group of people can get together and just be like, hey, we're going to get real in here. Like, let's get real and just be vulnerable, say whatever's going on, and like be accepted, walk out of the room and feel great. And like, it changes the way that you approach life. So, it was a really great thing. And what was also awesome about the process of making this record was by doing this, we were capturing like little Polaroid snapshots of our actual existence in that moment, as opposed to like in the past, we were like making these tracks, picking the ones as a band like that we like the most, and then like letting those dictate where we're going vibe wise, and then kind of having to draw from those experiences, but like not really sharing them, just being kind of like, yeah, I mean, like I've been mad before, it's like you're kind of pulling up things from the past all the time, as opposed to kind of like dealing with it in real time, and then like finding a way to like make the music represent it the best way.
Yeah, that thing you were talking about is like, so the difference in process, like it's like a technical difference between the way we would make music before, and the way that we did this album. And it does circle back to what Chester was just talking about. Like which is really, I think what he was just talking about is so profound, not only for our record. I mean, obviously it drove our record, but it's just in general, like this is like such a cool thing that Chester went through. And a piece of it, and that we all went through, by the way. And a piece of it is like on our old records, we would make tracks, we'd make the music first, and the music would kind of like inevitably the music would dictate what the song is going to be about, right? So my example that I've been thinking about a lot is if I had woke up in the morning and I wanted to write a song about my kids. So let's say, you know, my kids are, they're little, but they're pretty hard-headed and they're strong-willed and they have a point of view. And when they're 16, they're going to be so tricky to deal with because they're just going to slam the door and say, I hate you, Dad. You don't understand me. You're just trying to, you know, make me do whatever. And the truth is, like parents, you know, you're disciplining your kid or you're leading your kid in certain directions to help them, right? And sometimes they don't want to hear that. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a song for that situation and put it in a time capsule for my kids when they're 16? What if I walked in the studio that day and I said, and the music that was up that we had started the day before that we were ready to work on was a punk rock song that was like, right? I'd be like, oh, okay, like this is what we're doing today. And I just completely take the other idea and put it somewhere else and forget about it maybe and come in and change my mind and work on this other thing. That's what we used to do. And it wasn't that we were like any less excited about it. Like I know myself, like I come in and I just like, oh, so this is what we're doing. And then I'd be 100% focused on that. But the other idea would get lost. And like the next day, I don't know if I'd be so inspired about the other idea because this punk rock song is doing so well. It's like, sounds great. Let's work on that. The fact is that we walked in every day and we said, with nothing there, no music there, we said, what do you want to write about? And those things that Chester just talked about, like that's what was going on, you know? And that was his, like, I had my own stuff. I think it was like a lot less like, probably less dramatic, maybe less interesting than what's going on. But we'd all related. Like we're all friends, we're all a family. Like it's all touching one another's experiences, you know?
Here's the interesting thing about feelings and about perception is a lot of people feel like, oh, like, especially when you're trying to like get sober. This is a perfect example of trying to get sober. Some people may not have gone down the road of like injecting and like living on the streets and like, you know, that kind of stuff. And so they think like, oh, my story's not that bad. Right. It's like, dude, no, man. Like if you're here,
it's as bad as you think.
If you're here, it's that bad. There's nothing special about that guy who's been living on the streets and the person who's just like, you know, binge drinker 3 times a month or something. Mm-hmm. You know, like your life's fucked up and you realize that there's something you got to do about it, and it's just as hard on either end, right? And so like, you know, that's the beauty I think of like music in general is like it attaches itself to anything. All you have to do is be able to feel things, and understand what's going on. It doesn't mean like, you know, the situations that make you sad or frustrated or angry or happy or fall in love or any of those things, they don't have to be exactly the same as the person next to you. Mm-hmm. But each one is just as relevant as the next. And so that's what was like really interesting about this process. It was like, you know, I remember one day coming in and just being like, do you really want to know? Like we were having all this small talk and it was really kind of funny. And like, we were just like, you know, talking about the weather and like the traffic sucked.
Like, it was like, hey, like, how are you doing? And you're like, I'm fine.
And I was like, I'm good. You know, traffic sucked, whatever. Like I'm stoked, like whatever. Yeah. And then we like more small talk was going on. And I was like, you guys really want to know what happened today? Mm. And they're like, yeah. And I told them and everyone was like, oh shit. Because it was like one of the gnarliest fucking things you could ever find out and you never want to hear. Mm. You know what I mean? Like you never want to get the news I got that morning, ever. There's no situation that would make it like, okay, like I could deal with that. It's not like, oh, my house burned down. You can get another fucking house. You know, this was like one of the worst things ever. And it was like, that's what I'm going through right now. And even though nobody in the room had that exact experience, everyone was like, oh shit, like I can relate, like I can empathize with how you're feeling. I can put myself in your shoes and be like, fuck dude, that's crazy. And you're here. And so like, that's all these things were going on, and it just inspired all these really great songs, all these really intimate moments. And it was just one after another, after another, after another, after another. Next thing you know, we got like 40 songs. Some of them were a little bit more kind of funky. Some of them were like a little bit more lighthearted. But ultimately, the majority of them felt almost like this record. And we were just like, I guess this is the kind of record we're making, I guess this is what we're doing right now. Let's make the sounds really fun. Let's build the tracks and make the music as interesting as possible, because the lyrics and the melodies are so and so it was like this really fun, interesting experience. And at the end of it, I was like, fuck the world when we started this, and now I'm like, I love you. I'm looking outside like, oh, the birds just shit on my car. Look at that.
That's funny.
That's so cool. It's like, it's crazy, but it's not one of these like manic episodes where it's like, I'm just like, it's like, it's like legitimate. There's more peace. There's more of like a kind of like a quiet, and it's because I've earned that. I've worked for it, and I have tools, and like everybody's earned it. We're all really happy. We're all really stoked about what we created. We're stoked about how we've grown as a band and as friends, and I think that making this record in the way that we did was not only great for us creatively, but it was also great for us as people too.
So I'm not allowed to say anything more. I have so many questions. It was a really intense interview because, of course, I want to know what is the new feeling now getting together, as you said.
Well, we'll have to save it for next time.
Okay.
It was good though. I think that like that was really, that was exceptionally deep, and really good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it, and it was really interesting to me, and I didn't expect that, to be honest. So.
Well, we didn't talk about like, well, we used this guitar tone, and what about this like recording process?
And we really
pop
music.
And to be honest, you're so long in the game, so that was actually the reason why I talked about being older, being more as a human being, because we are all human beings.
Exactly.
So,
I enjoyed it. This is great.
And next time we're going to continue.
I think it's important for people to realize that we're actually human beings too.
That's it. Because you talked so many times about music. So
Right.
really,
Cool, man. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We don't have any time left for the pictures. We can just make like a really quick one, and then we have to
We have
go to the
like
next
2 minutes we have a photograph waiting there.
Let's
Just
do
do
it.
like
Let's do it.
2 quick shots and 1 shot with me. This would be great.
Or you live in a different room. Yeah, 104. Is that where we're at? Go back and forth. Okay. You're going to 104 right now? Yeah.